Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's been a minute. We decided to take part of June off. I got sick. The Seahawks have been quiet, so we took a little bit of time, but we are back on the B&B show, back on Talking Seahawks with the Hawks Nest, whatever you want to call it. Either way, I am joined, as I always am, by Brandon of the Hawks Nest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing phenomenal, my friend. How you doing?
I am doing better. I am doing better every day, and
It's good to
as
see
a
you back to
yeah.
full strength. That's for
Yeah, we're
sure.
we're almost there. I'm still on the injury report, but it's like the Bill Belichick injury report when he had Tom Brady on there for like 4 years.
Well, now it's like to the medical injury reports where you don't with in this day and age, it could be real serious real quick. So you're always a little bit like, oh, we okay? We okay? Get through. We through the
Hmm.
light, through the tunnel. So it's good to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You remember that when Belichick just put Brady on the injury report every single week for like it was like 4 years or something?
Yeah, and the reason he was doing that was because why, Brendan? Because they were cheating. That's the reason that precipitated it, because the NFL cracked down on them for not letting know about injuries that were happening and occurring. And so then Belichick said, "Fine, they'll put Brady on every week just to mess with you guys." And that's why he did it. It's completely petty. And again, they always have it's like, I'm sorry we had to call you out on your cheating. Excuse us, our bad.
Yeah. Well, that's how it goes. But it was pretty amusing for a few years there.
Oh
It
yeah.
was pretty interesting, admittedly. But hey, we're in the middle of June, maybe the slowest time of the year to be a football fan in general. You've got training camp stuff going on, but a lot of the stuff that happens there, it's hard to take much from it, right? It's like a whole lot of reports of this guy's in the best shape of their life, but there's no way this many people are in the best shape of their life. There's a lot of this guy is doing things I've never seen anyone do before, and you're pretty sure, yeah, I've seen people do that all the time. So that kind of stuff. I mean, have you liked anything that you've heard coming out of training camp so far?
I like you. I think that there's a big grain of salt that you've got to take with these reports coming out because, Brendan, we have to also remind ourselves that this isn't just OTAs from 10 years ago. We've reached the point of OTAs where there were crackdowns on our team for overstepping the bounds and not like going full on padded practice style, but that guys happen to bump into each other and jostle in midair and we get fined and lose a day of practice. We got our hands slapped a couple of times. So now we have to do these very rigid, everybody keep 6 feet of distance type space. The cornerbacks can't jump up and make a play on the ball in practice. You're in pads. You're not in pads. You're in just your helmets basically. I really think that there's very little to be taken away from these practices. It's more about, to me, how bad a player can look as much as how good they can look. And I think if there's one thing I take away from is that we're hearing that the cornerbacks are doing really well, which I'm
Hmm.
encouraged by, especially when it comes to Tariq Woolen, is a guy that we thought both that this guy's going to be a little rough. He's going to need a little bit of time to develop. And yet the reports are he was fast, he was quick, he was making plays on the ball. That he seems to be a little ahead of the curve there than maybe where we had thought is one thing I would take from it. But beyond that, Cody Thompson tearing it up. Do either of us really think Cody Thompson is going to make the opening day roster at the end of the day? All these plays making, probably not.
You would hope
Probably not.
not, right?
Yeah,
If
you
he
would hope
does, we
not.
might have a problem.
Something's gone wrong, probably, if he is. And he's one of those guys yours. Oh, he's every day he's flashing in camp. So we'll see.
Hmm.
We'll see. What I'm a little more once we get to training camp, where my ear gets a little bit more pressed to the ground.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right way to look at things. But there are some things going on. And there are a few things that are maybe kind of sort of going on, but it's hard to really know. So let's start with the one concrete thing that this team has done in recent days that matters,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the Brian Mone extension. They have extended on to the end of his 1 year tender, which was, I think, about $1 million,
I know
2 years, 12 million. Now, apparently, that move actually will create a little bit of cap space this year. I'm not sure exactly how much, but apparently it does free up a little bit of money that might go to the Metcalf extension that we're still all waiting on. I don't know if that's the case or not, but a few people have said that it does. But I think the real headline there is the 2 years, 12 million. So off the bat, what's your take on the Monet extension?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it saves money. I'll say that he's getting only $1.5 million bonus, but then that $1.5 million bonus spreads out over the top. And unless, even if they took down his veteran minimum base, he was on a rookie deal. It would be negligible if there's a difference there.
Mhm.
I'm pretty lukewarm, Brendan, on this contract. I've been very effusive in my praise of this team throughout this offseason at most every turn, including with the Russell Wilson deal and what they were able to get back this draft. But the one place that I've continued to have some issues with them is in the spending zone. And when we look at our other teams in this division and throughout the league, those teams that are at the forefront of pushing to stack as deep a roster as they can, they're doing so by any means necessary, to the point where people are accusing the Rams of not operating under the constraints of the cap. Now, us, meanwhile, are using a lot of our money and we're putting it on shorter term deals, 1, 2, 3 year deals at the very most. And this means you can't spread out, if you have bonus money or whatever, the cost out more further. So another deal here that we stack on a Jefferson like deal or a Wusu, or just go down the line this offseason and prior years, Brendan, in regards to that. And the reason, my bigger point on this is that I'm worried that the reason that we're doing this is not because tactically we're choosing to do so, but because of that escrow issue that we've talked about as it concerns having to put bonus and guaranteed money into escrow immediately when you sign a player onto a contract, and that we might have an owner right now, not cash strapped, but not in a cash liquid place to be able to throw out those kind of contracts, which would also explain, by the way, why this DK contract hasn't been done when, by all intents and purposes, it should have been long hashed out by now.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate rundown of it. By the way, I guess another thing that's happened interesting lately is that we have a timeline on the team getting sold. Apparently, that they basically will not get sold for the next 23 months, but after that, it's open season.
Fair game.
S- So it sounds like we have a timeline because we also know that apparently Jody has to sell them.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around that.
Right.
So the timeline's kind of interesting. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, as for Monet, I when I saw this, I was a little surprised. He was not the guy that I thought was at the top of our priority list to keep, but I thought about it for a little bit. So I don't know exactly how big Brian Monet is, but I think he's probably around like 350, maybe 355.
They listed at
Um,
366.
Yeah, a couple websites list him at like 345, some list him at 360. So you split the difference, he's probably around 350.
Yeah.
So you need that kind of guy in a 3-4 defense, which we are apparently going to run a lot. You need the some people call them the trash can full of dirt.
Right.
So I look at that and I go, well, we need a guy like that. If it wasn't going to be Monet, who was it going to be? Because I have looked a little bit at next year's draft class for nose tackles, and I found one guy who I think can be like a trash can full of dirt.
Mhm.
It's Justin Rogers from Kentucky. He's the
Mhm.
only guy. All the other defensive tackles I looked at, they were more 300, 305, 310 pounds, more three techs than zero techs. So maybe they're just looking at this and going, we need a guy who's going to be big enough to be that nose tackle. Al Woods is probably not long for this world, or well, not long for this league. And we have this guy who has the size for it. Let's just lock him up now. And the other consideration, by the way, is that the cap is about to go way up.
Right.
So these kinds of contracts that are like $6 million a year, going to basically look like $5 million a year in a year from now, because I think the cap is going to go way up next offseason.
Yeah, and I think your point's right on that. This was one of the reasons both you and I were kind of also, in retrospect, I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back here, but we were talking about, wow, if we could, right after like, day one of the draft, where we said, boy, if we can get back into the second or third round to get ourselves Travis Jones, because of how good a player he was. He was that guy after Jordan Davis last year. And again, after those two guys, there wasn't much in last year's draft that you could have gotten the position either, which I'm not anti signing him on the deal. Even though I'm a little worried about the money situation as a larger issue at play. This deal's fine, and you can get out from it under it very easily too, Brendan. If he totally just is nothing next year, and you're like, okay, that was a bad move on our part, and then you're out, and you can be free. So I don't hate it from that angle. He's obviously been a little up and down throughout his time, and looking at his history here, I think there's an explanation for it. Last year, he balled out that first game against the Colts, and then he had the elbow injury, and that elbow injury was lingering then throughout the course of the season. Then he gets COVID at the end of the year. He's out for 3 more games at the end of the year, and we all know of kind of the issues you have to deal with recovering from COVID after that point. So him not necessarily having a ball out type season to earn an even bigger contract than this, it's maybe explainable where that was the year they were really expecting him to pop based on what they're seeing in practice and the kind of development that he's bringing to the play. I can only lean back and think that they've seen something there from him in practice or in flashes, because again, remember they let go of Snacks Harrison too a couple of years ago. Why? They wanted to keep Brian Mone, and it was literally a Snacks or Mone type situation at the time.
Yeah, a few people pointed out, and if you go back and look at this, he missed 3 games last year. So I went back and looked. He missed the Titans game, which was the worst game this run defense has had in several years, I would say. He missed the second Rams game where we gave up like 125 yards, 29 carries. It wasn't terrible, but it was below our standard. And then he missed the Bears game. Now, that game, we were fine. It was like 30 carries for 88 yards. But it's the Bears. Like, maybe if Mone's in there, they run for like 48 yards.
Yeah.
So I guess if you look at it like that, you could say there is a correlation between Mone and our run defense, because we had one of the best run defenses in the league last year, 3.8 yards a carry. So maybe there is something there that these stats can't quite capture, because for whatever it's worth, PFF didn't like him at all last year. They gave him a really bad grade, but maybe there's just something there that even PFF isn't quantifying.
And they liked him okay the year before. He had the career high in snaps last year. So it's a little bit of that, even though he had his best year statistically, he also had by far the most snaps of his career. So it's those snaps in between where you got to get that consistency. But then that's where I also come in, Brendan, to the excuse of COVID coming off of that. And then prior to that elbow injury, because once he got back after 3 games, that thing wasn't 100%. He was probably still trying to fight and got it through and probably not playing at his full strength. So yeah, it's not big money. Like I said, the cap's going to go up. I think that Amazon money is going to kick in and it's going to blow everyone's mind, Brendan. You and I are going to be doing videos. I'm going to predict it. There's these videos that we're going to be doing where everyone's going to be like, no, this is going to shoot up 20 million alone, and there'll be increases on top of it with this Amazon money too. And like, yeah, that's what this is going to do when it really kicks in. So it's going to make these contracts in retrospect look, I dare say, paltry, but very well paltry is how these will look.
Yeah, I actually have heard that the Amazon deal alone is going to be 50 mil extra per team on the cap, and that's possible. I mean, that sounds crazy, but that's how valuable the NFL is right now. And I mean, you're going to hear more stuff about these crazy contracts coming out, but like whatever DK is going to get when he gets it, I'm assuming he's going to get it. It's probably going to make you go, oh no. But you have to look at it in terms of like the big money does not kick in until later. The cap is going to skyrocket. Same with the inevitable extension that Wilson's going to get, which some Seahawks fans have been talking about that a little bit because there were some possible price points talked about in recent weeks.
Rodgers is leaking, man. Rodgers is leaking. He's up to his old shenanigans. Oh, it's just coming from random sources. It's just being drummed up out of thin air. We've been down this road. We've been down this road with him before.
Yeah, and right now that sounds obscene, but by the time you get there, it probably really won't be. I remember Wilson's first contract extension. It was like 80 million for 4 years. That seemed high, and then Brock Osweiler got almost the same extension, and you're like, oh, so this is how it's going to work now. So it's going to keep going that way.
That's one of the things that drives me crazy, that quarterback market where you go, God, let's get to a tier 2. Not everything has to be tier nothing or tier 1 or rookie quarterbacks to tier 1. Let's find the middle ground. And Brendan, this is a little bit where my frustration comes in with the DK. Like I said, I feel like this deal should have gotten done. The market is the market on this. I keep having Schneider's comments ringing in my head of, I didn't think the receiver market was going to explode like this when he talked about it at the combine. It's like, how could you not? Hopkins was signed last year to 27.5. You've had 2 major receiver deals go through this last season. You have AJ Brown to put it at 25. Like this deal should be all day done at 26 million a year. 56 million guaranteed. Done. That beats AJ's Brown last deal. It keeps him in within the reason of where the bounds of reasonable. I can only wonder. I guess it's one of 2 things. Either Seattle's trying to force him down at the 22-23 level, which is just silly, or he's asking for this, everything at 28 or something.
Honestly, if it's 28, I'm not gonna love it, but honestly, I'm not even gonna be that upset about it.
No.
He's done pretty much everything you could ask a player to do in his first 3 years. He's
Right.
played in every game. He's broken every franchise record for a receiver in his first 3 years, and he's done it making very little money, and unlike somebody like Russell Wilson who's made hundreds of millions of dollars, DK hasn't made any real money yet. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that he's trying to get paid here, and I don't know what's taking so long either. I will say it seems like Metcalf is making it clear that he's not going to play on the 4th year of his rookie deal.
Yeah.
This holdout that we're dealing with right now is making that clear. So something will be done between now and the season. I can say that.
I do hope so. I do hope so because that's I'm like you. Look, if the 26 is the going rate, and I wouldn't like to pay 28, but 28 becomes the price. Am I gonna kick DK to the curb because of over $2 million? No, And again, markets the price is the price. We don't get it sometimes. The market will dictate the price, not us fans or not the owners individually. It's what the where the water is at as far as how deep it goes.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's basically the Monet rundown. I don't think either of us love it, but it seems okay. Like,
Well, yeah, I
and
think by the way, your point on that, the scarcity of the position point that you made, that's
mhm,
that's that's one of the biggest things hanging in here. Above what his ability and his potential there, where were you going to get the alternative? Al Woods is going to be here for one more year. Do you want to be forced into a situation where you're going into next year's draft going, well, we got to put one of these second round picks on the best zero tech in the draft, who's really probably a third rounder, but we're going to pick him there anyway. No, you don't want to be there. It's a much better place to minorly overpay for a defensive tackle that you already have on the roster and know what you've got, then go that
mhm.
alternative route.
Right, right. And also, I have a feeling a decent chunk of that money is tied up in incentives, and a decent chunk of that money is non-guaranteed to where he may not see it if he's not here past 2023.
I think it's only up to 13. It's 13.1 was the number I read. So there's only about $600,000 in incentives in the deal, I think. But that is also makes it where, of course, that's where the deal then counts because the incentives are counting against the cap until you get the money back or pay it out, one of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, the other angle that I would like to point out here is there's been some consternation from Seahawks fans lately because a lot of our 2023 cap space is starting to disappear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently it's down to like 50 million because we are giving out these contracts to Diggs, to Disley, to Nwosu, to now Monet. But one thing I want to say is that for me, 2023 is not the year. 2023 is not the year where you go all in. 2023 is like the proof of concept year. And then
Mm-hmm.
2024 is the year where if your proof of concept works, you go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not that worried about the cap space in 2023. We have to get to like the minimum threshold anyway. I don't think 2023 is going to be the year to go all in anyway. I'm more concerned about the 2024 cap space. That's the year I want to be really aggressive in free agency and fill whatever holes we have. So I'm not sweating that too much either, personally.
I guess I somewhat look at it in that vein.
Mm.
I'm pretty much, I think a little bit of it could be depending on this year because if you do get players popping and developing in a weird way that maybe we haven't even anticipated, that could certainly jumpstart that a year quicker. With that said, I still maybe even for different reasons share none of the worry or consternation these other folks might have in regards to this because all of these deals have been short term. All of these deals are not on 4-year deals. You can get out from under anything pretty reasonably easy after this season. Let's say absent DK, Tyler, and to a smaller degree Adams and our free safety Quandre. Those are really the only 4 contracts you're going to be impinged by. The rest you pretty much have full mobility on. So I I just think you got flexibility if you need it there. And if you don't, if the guys aren't popping or hitting true, if Noah Fan comes out this next year and he ain't nothing and you want to move off from him, or you'll have the Shelby Harris same way. So they've got a lot of flexibility there. On top of Brendan, let's remember, they're not really going to have any sitting dead money they're walking into next season like they are right now, right? They've cleared pretty much all the bad money off the books.
Right, right. I just unless Drew Lock is really, really the guy, I don't see how 2023 is the year. 2023 is the year where like, okay, let's go get our new quarterback in the draft. Let's see if he's the guy. Let's see what he can do as a rookie. And then if he's the guy in that second year, we just go all in, like what the Chargers have kind of done with Herbert. Maybe not so much last off season, but generally speaking, I feel like that's the formula going forward.
I'm with you on that. And I certainly don't think that even if Locke or Geno Smith perform marginally well, they're going to necessarily say this is our long-term future at the position. But more of what I'm thinking on it is that what if the rest of the team comes forward? Not necessarily the quarterback position, but truly what they're trying to build in place, which is the replication of the 2012 blueprint, which is building up essentially, let's just call it, for lack of a better word, the super team. Okay.
Mhm.
What if Owusu comes in and suddenly those pressures turn into sacks in the previous year, and Maffe's freakish from the jump, and your running game is devastating, and Penny can stay healthy, and the two rookie tackles are ready to go, and they're going to start improving even more so. If you come off the end of the season and you've gotten yourself in the playoffs despite your quarterback position play, and you've got guys that are really showing you at certain positions that they're getting to maybe semi-even elite status, uh, does that not maybe push you up a little bit to push that a little bit faster at that point?
Yeah, it's possible, but there are a lot of things wrapped in with everything you just said that need to go right. I mean,
Admittedly,
you
yes.
you need to be batting 1,000 almost, or very close.
You do. And again, I think you're right that even if you have this team in a good shape, you're bringing a rookie quarterback in next year to helm this. How much can you expect out of a rookie? I feel like to a degree we had Russell sort of topped out in that rookie 2012 year by the time he got to the playoffs, where he had pushed his magic that particular year for his depth of wisdom of knowledge at that point, being a rookie, as far as he could sort of take it. And there
Mhm.
may be something to that. But they are putting certain pieces here where if things are set up to where you do get, I would say if you get like surprising development out of 6, 7 guys you hadn't thought you were going to maybe have rolled, if that's near perfect, then maybe, but something in that realm could push them to look at this and go, let's go a little bit faster with it. I still think, though, even this stuff kind of was all relevant, whether it's 13 or 2024, of course, because they're still at least in that place where they're in that on the precipice of being sold. How much money is really being doled out at that point? How much, who did Denver over the last couple of years as they were on the edge of being sold? How many deals have they been handing out right and left over that period? I think they've signed like Justin Simmons and who?
Hmm.
So it's like once you get to that point, like we are, I feel like we're going to see a lot more of these 1 and 2 year deals, maybe 3-year deals from time to time. But I don't think that even if they're in a go forward state, that they're necessarily in these next 2 years going to be pushing to do their damage by spending. And yeah, they're going to have to be more perfect because of this, I think, Brendan. But that's also what part of my frustration with them having to go this route is, versus having an owner with loose purse strings.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully we get the right owner in a couple years, and it'll all be worth it and everything. Like I see the timeline now, and I kind of like it, but we have to get the right quarterback next year for one.
Yeah.
But so let's pivot a little bit to that discussion of the quarterback, because there is one particular quarterback who, for the last 24 hours, has been linked to the Seahawks yet again. So we've already talked about him a good amount here, but I guess we got to do it again because everyone's seen this. Josina Anderson had a conversation with Baker Mayfield's agent, and he was like, I need you to put some good words out about my guy, because right now it's nobody wants this guy. I need you to put something positive out there. I need you to try to get the Panthers to panic and trade for him. I mean, I don't know. It just seems so obvious to me that's what's happening here.
Mention extension, Josina. Mention that they're going to trade and give him an extension too. Put that in there as
Mhm.
well. Okay. I know nobody will believe it. Just put it in there. Say that they're also going to pay him extra years in money. Please.
Yeah.
Please. Josina, what's your cash app? What's your cash app, Josina?
Yeah. But we got to talk about it. It's the
We
biggest
do,
Seahawks story out there right now, possibly.
for sure.
So there's a rumor out there that the Seahawks want to trade for Baker Mayfield and are willing to extend him as well. And that just, based off everything that we're hearing right now, I'm sorry. I don't want to get sued by anybody. It just seems so obvious to me that this is being said because Baker or Baker's agent wants it to be the case, but I think it's pretty clearly not. So let's talk about it. What do you got? Has your position changed at all on Baker?
My position still has not moved on Baker. I'm in a position where I again think that there's very small marginal difference in terms of talent between Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith and Drew Lock at the end of the day. He's
Mhm.
been given we've got to look through Baker and understanding that yes, he went to Cleveland, this poor franchise. See, the narrative is he went to this poor franchise, hadn't won a playoff game in 497 years. And he on his back alone, he put the team up on his back and he lifted them into the playoffs. And that's the narrative, which it's BS. It is. The Cleveland organization were one of the forerunners of the analytics in the NFL, and that helped them get in the last couple of years a little bit ahead of the 8 ball in how they've assembled their roster, specifically building out on the offensive line. But they gave him everything from Odell to Jarvis to for big time, the biggest tight end free agent at that time in the offseason, Hooper, to David Njoku. They just paid a crap ton of money to. They drafted highly. You have 2 top of the line running backs in the backfield, and even hit his best of the best of the best of the best in 3 years. I've got him just barely above average with all that. He's not going to have that in Seattle right now. So why would we think he'd be any better if he was only this good with all that when he's going to have so much less coming over here? Yeah, you just come back again and again going, how is it that he's worthwhile to do this? And again, we're doing this now, Brendan, at June 23rd. You're going to make this trade for Baker Mayfield. You do it at the start of the offseason when he can then work with the wide receivers and get some chemistry going, as opposed to trying to make this all happen in the 25th hour at the last minute and expecting to get any kind of returns. Say nothing of we're watching play after play happen on the football field where they're like, well, DK ran that outrun there, Jim, and Baker was throwing it inside. I guess they just saw 2 different things. Yeah, that's just, Baker being so new to the film, being so new to the team, Joe. That's just what you get with. Okay. So I don't believe it because almost that reason alone, Brendan, if they were going to do this, you do it much like I don't think DK is going to be traded, because if you're going to make these moves, you make them months prior. You don't do them at this late stage of the game.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, and again, I kind of felt that way about the Wilson trade and it ended up happening, but I feel like if you're going to do these things, you do them as early as possible. And also, I think it needs to be pointed out here that Baker's injury that he had last year, what was it? It was torn
labrum.
Labrum? Yeah, labrum. That is probably not gone. That's probably going to continue to be a problem for him for this year. So if you get Baker, you are looking at him kind of limping through a season, and then maybe after that, in 2023, you've got yourself a good quarterback, and I'll give him every benefit of the doubt and call him good. He's not great, he's not special, but he could be like Ryan Tannehill, I guess. Maybe he could be like a Kirk Cousins,
right? And I think Kirk Cousins is actually better than him. I think he's got. I think he's got a more live arm, better deep ball. But I agree. You're on the right track by making that comparison. Don't get me wrong. You're in the right area. Those guys, we're talking about guys who are in that second rung. So it's like, how much differentiation is there at that point between those guys? We come back to again on this, Brendan, where you've already set your quarterback position, getting Locke included in the Wilson trade, already having Geno Smith here. Those are not top of the line guys, but again, second round talent type guys, which is probably what Baker should have been at the end of the day. Shouldn't have been probably a first round over pick. Should have probably been more of a second round type guy. So is all of this, making the trade for him and then finding the way you have to eat half of his salary and then having to make considerations about a freaking extension. Is that all worth it at the end of the day? And it just seems like a real big headache and a mess at this late stage of the game, to take this. If you were doing it for a real difference maker at the position, a guy with real upside, then yes. And to your point on that shoulder injury, by the way, he's been rehabbing, as I've heard reports on this, he's been rehabbing through most of the offseason, not necessarily throwing, rehabbing. That's what he's been having to do. So it's just, there's so many reasons this doesn't make sense and so few reasons that it does. And I can't find a lot of solidity behind it. And those folks that like him just seem to, all you can really end up pointing back to is he took Cleveland, who had never won a playoffs, to a playoffs and won a game by handing the ball off 39 times in that game. And then he was the number 1 overall pick. If I remove those elements from the debate or discussion, it seems like there's not a lot of a leg to stand on the other side of it as to why he is so valuable, why he is so much better than what we already have.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem here is that even if we're wrong about Baker and he's much better than than we think, and he overcomes the injury, and he comes in here and has an awesome season and takes us to the playoffs, you're going to have to pay him immediately, pretty much,
Mhm.
because this is going to be year 5 for him. So he's going to be a free agent. And if he has a big season, the floor on that extension is probably 200 million, and probably going to be closer to the 250 number, honestly. So you're getting none of the cheap rookie year contracts, years.
Well, how about that? Would you not say Baker is exactly the type of person who's going to be pushing for every last dollar he can get on the back of a good season? This is not a guy who's coming back to you going, I'm taking a team discount.
Yeah, he hasn't made very much money in the well, okay, he's made for number 1 overall money, but it's not like he's made hundreds of millions of dollars. Although
It's a respect
his
thing, though. That's what they'll tell
yeah,
you. It's a respect thing. It's not about the money. It's respect. It's not really. No, it's respect. Okay.
mhm,
And he just strikes me as that kind of guy. It's like they just need to
yeah,
show me the proper amount of respect, and if I feel the love, then I'll know I'm being respected.
yeah. I do think there's actually something to that, though. I remember Sean Alexander talking about that after the 2004 season when Hasselbeck and Walt got extensions and he didn't. I remember he was talking about how, like, I just felt so disrespected. I think there is something there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect a player like Baker to take a discount. I wouldn't be mad at him for not taking one.
No, no. I don't get me wrong. I'm not anti him getting every money he can, but we do have to factor that to your original point on this, on cost and what you're dealing with near in the future by bringing Baker Mayfield, is that you get this good year, and now you're paying Russell Wilson prices moving forward for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and even if he does have that really good year, I don't know if it's going to lead to that much. He'll be playing behind an offensive line that PFF currently ranks as the worst in the league, and I don't know if it's going to be,
Yeah.
but there's a reason why they put them down there. It's not that far off.
I mean, maybe it is. It's possibly. I think what they're trying to do is that they have to do so much projection with this offensive line. You have 2 rookies. How do you project how those rookies will play in the NFL? Do you say
Hmm.
that just because they're rookies, they're going to be bad? They kind of are. They kind of are in their assessment. They're saying simply
Yeah.
because they're. And I would argue that when one of those rookies is a top 10 left tackle, there's a recent past of top 10 left tackles actually performing pretty decently in their first year in the NFL.
Hmm.
We'll see with Lucas, 30 straight starts in college. I think that would
Hmm.
project out a little better than being bottom of the league initially, maybe. But again, that's maybe a leap. And then you add in Austin Blythe, who didn't play any snaps last year. And then it's being completely weighted by our guards and Stone, Forsythe, and Curran, who were actually fairly well rated by PFF last year when they played.
Hmm.
So I don't really know. Honestly, Brendan, I think they're taking it and they're putting their hand up their butt and pulling out a number on that one. I don't think that they're really basing a whole lot of that on anything tangible, in my opinion, other than Gabe
Yeah.
Jackson and certainly Damian Lewis. That can knock you down there for what you're getting from cumulatively from them,
Yeah.
definitely. But I mean, Blythe didn't play, 2 rookie tackles. How are we projecting anything of
Yeah.
what they're going to be moving into next year?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's unreasonable to project
No.
that 2 rookie tackles are going to have issues. Now, they might play good overall. Like, I think that Cross and I would say Lucas too are going to be okay run blocking,
Mhm.
but pass blocking, it's going to be a struggle, and I'm cool with that. But even if we're not the worst offensive line in the league, I think we're going to be down near the bottom for at least the start of the year.
Definitely in the 20s, no doubt about it. So don't get me wrong. I definitely think that to what you talked about, I would equate that to like, we'll probably be in the 20s. But to say that you're like you're third to last in the league in the NFL, there's some real bad offensive lines in this league. I mean, there are some, dear God, Brendan, you don't want to look at them like offensive lines. So I just don't buy that. But yeah, 20s, 22, 23, 24, even 25-ish maybe, even, but not into the 28, 29 realm. To me, that's a little bit of an overstatement.
Possibly. I'm open to a lot of different directions this season can go for the offensive line. I mean, it doesn't help when you have a right guard playing left guard. That's a big sink. Arguably, our best guard may start the season on the bench. I think Phil Haynes might be our best guard. So
Mhm.
there are a lot of things dragging it down. But
And he's out of position too. Don't forget that. He's at right guard still.
yeah. I mean, I think he's okay at it though. I don't think it's like Damian
No, I think he's a
Lewis
left
where
guard. He should be a left. No, he's all right at right guard, but I do think left guards, he's more of a pure left guard because his pass
yeah,
protection is his first and foremost skill set, as opposed to being run blocking, which is normally what you want out of the right guard, first and
right.
foremost.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing that people need to remember here. even if you get Baker and he's good and he overcomes the injury and all that, you are right back in the hole of giving a quarterback 20% of your cap. And
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to get out of.
Yeah.
That's what you can avoid if you get a rookie who is stuck on that rookie deal for 3 years.
Mhm. If not longer.
So, yeah, possibly longer. But that is, I think, even bigger than Baker. The problems with Baker as a player. It's like,
Yeah.
it's almost like it's a lose lose. No matter what happens, you lose. If he's bad, you traded for a bad quarterback. If he's good, it's not going to amount to that much. And then you immediately pay him.
It's a good point. I mean, these decisions are never just based on one thing. You have to bring in all the factors at play, from cap to the future, towards, especially when you have a guy like him with such an important decision that you're going to have to make on him after a year, after you gave up draft resources, after you paid him probably a significant amount of money this year, taking on one half, 1/4 of his contract, whatever is deemed by Cleveland that you have to take on top of the draft capital you've given up for him. Like, it just, you put it all together into that one bag, and you go, it's just, there's not a lot here that cumulatively makes sense. It can, on the surface, you could say, let's go get Baker, but then let's go look at the other things, secondary aspects beyond that.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. I'm not a complete Baker hater. I don't think last year is a good reflection of what he is.
No.
The offensive line for the Browns took a big step back. He was playing injured. It was not the Browns from the previous year at all. But regardless, I just don't see any real upside here personally.
No, I don't either. And I don't hold too much against him. It is more the previous year or his quote unquote good year, where I go, okay, you had all this working for you, and how far did you top it out? And I think I would expect more returns from a guy that's a number one over. If I put Kyler Murray in that offense, number one pick from Oklahoma, another one, right? Another undersized
Hmm.
quarterback out of Oklahoma who was number one overall
Hmm.
pick. If I put him in the Cleveland offense of 2020, he's taking that team further than Baker Mayfield did.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Absolutely.
and maybe that's not trying to be total indictment on Mayfield. I'm not being a complete hater on him, but again, it's a second round quarterback talent isn't going to get me very excited. I would like to have a first round talent type QB at the position moving forward. From a tool standpoint, from an ability standpoint, maybe from a mobility standpoint, put it all together in this modern era. That's what I would be looking for.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, we have the same problem with Locke because if he has a big year, he's going to get paid immediately. But the thing is, Locke is already here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so you may as well deal with that. Why would you go out of your way to get somebody who has the exact same problem?
Right. Well, and you're removing also with Locke. Here's the thing with Locke. We can say, and this is again
Mm.
where that people are so sure Locke sucks and Baker's awesome. Those people who love Baker's awesome, Locke sucks. And to me, I go, I don't think that the cake's fully baked with Locke yet. I don't think we know what he is. And to me, when I look at Baker, I know what Baker's potential is when he's at his best, Brendan, because to me of that 2020 season, I can kind of see that and go, okay, you're all the best parts around you, and this is as far as you can take it. I don't know what Drew Lock's top end is. I don't know. Maybe he may have another level up above when he finally, if the light bulb does turn on. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I would much rather take my casino money and put it on that one and let it ride. To your point, you're not giving up any draft capital for him. He cost you $2.1 million on the cap this year versus Baker, who, even if you take a fourth of what he's owed, is still $5 million you're going to be owing on that deal this year. So just, to me, ride with what you got on that. And Locke, he has a potential. Look, he might be what he is. He might just suck, but he was not put in the best position there with Denver when you consider defensive-minded coach who obviously wasn't really high on him. No pass protection really around him for the last couple of years when he was in there. How much success do we expect from a young quarterback who's given those two items as his, here, start with this, Drew?
Hmm. Yeah, and honestly, from what I've heard from training camp so far, it seems like Drew Lock's playing pretty well. Not that that means anything. It doesn't. They're what did Clint Hurt call them? The underwear Olympics. I'm not saying that means anything, but it seems like he's playing pretty well so far.
He's got all the talent you could want to look for in a quarterback. At the end of the day, maybe it's a light bulb issue, maybe it's a processing issue, maybe he doesn't, get to that point, Brendan. This is on the player, and you and I can't predict that. It's on, only he upstairs knows if he's going to be able to get that to go. But what I do know is he's being brought into a very player-friendly environment, perhaps the most player-friendly environment in the league. And if there was a part that was impacting him at his prior stay, where it was a psychology thing and he had a coach just kind of beating him down, as Bronco fans themselves have told me, by the way, in
Hmm.
force in my chat, I'm sure you've heard the same thing in yours. So if that is the case, and now he's going to more of a player-friendly coach, he's got a lot of stuff still here to work with. Yeah, the offensive line still could potentially be an issue, but they're going to protect him. They're not going to ask him to make some of the throws I think even Denver was asking him to make at times, where they're trying to lean into his big arm as opposed to scripting up some nice, easy things for him, letting him get in the rhythm, making the game a little easier on him. And if you do that, suddenly he might actually ball out and show you something on the other end of it with that in that capacity.
Yeah. And also, if Drew Lock is the guy he's been the last couple of years, then you're going to be really bad. Well, that's okay too.
Right.
If we're going to be bad, I'm not on team tank. I'm not trying to intentionally lose games, but if you're going to be bad, then I don't really see the difference between 4 wins and 6 wins. To me, it's just a bad season.
Right.
So give me the slightly better draft pick, honestly. Whatever Drew Lock does this year, I have a feeling it's going to be emphatic. He's going to be emphatically bad or emphatically good, opposed to somebody like Geno, who I think will just be kind of okay.
Right. He'll be good for a while until the wheels fall off, and then it's like, oh, it's back to it. This is why Geno's Geno. Yeah, that's how I see with him. I agree. That's part of I think we both have a sort of a Buddhist like outlook on this upcoming season of just being a sense of peace and just hey, it's what will happen. But to your point, all the less reason to make some clawing up the walls kind of trade for Baker Mayfield in desperation, right? Like we're good down here. We'll chill. We'll be here for a year if we got to be down here, or maybe not. That's the surprise, and that's going to be the cool part of the season is we don't know what we really have once day one hits. It could be a variety of different things.
Right. Okay, so I think that's enough on Baker. And to be clear, I don't buy the Josina Anderson story. I don't think it's true. No. It doesn't make sense to me that this team would be that interested in him. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that this would happen now. And by the way, maybe things are irreparable. It seems like Cleveland might end up needing him after all, right? Like he might want to stay put.
At the end of the day, I've said this for a while. If I'm Baker, I know your feelings are hurt. To your point on this, you're butthurt about it. I get it, bud. I get it. Swallow your pride. Dry your tears on the $18 million you're going to make this year, and go out there and ball behind a team that's still stacked up, that still has a lot for you, much better anywhere else than you'd be traded to go out there and show your stuff. And then after the year goes, Cleveland can't hold on to you moving forward. They're going to let you walk. Hell, you could probably get them to agree to let you walk without a franchise tag at this point if you agreed to return to them and play this year. So I know that these players get in this place of that. But if I'm Baker at that point, I go, hey, how much of a PR win would it be for him to go back to Cleveland and be like, and show the Cleveland fans and versus what Watson's brought with all that situation. Like he'd come out of that looking like a hero. His Q score would go through the roof from a brand standpoint. He could do all-state commercials in every stadium in the league until the end of time at that point. But I see that making more sense from his standpoint than ours, definitely by far. Just hang there. And I think again, you see that tweet come out and I see like celebrities posting like, Seahawks fan celebrities like Rainn Wilson will post like, get Baker now, go get him. Let's get him now. And like, well, it worked. Like you're saying on Josina drumming this up, like that the tactic is working. You're galvanizing up a fan base to try to push this. And the reason they're doing it is why, Brendan? Because we are deep into the hour now and he's not been traded. Where's his opening? Who's the other team out there that exists as that Baker team? You could say Carolina all you want, but if you really think about it, Carolina doesn't make that much sense. They're strapped to Darnold. They owe him $18 million already, so they ain't taking on that contract. And they drafted Matt Corral. So they've already got their 2 stack there. People have said, well, maybe they'll flip problems with Darnold to make Mayfield and they'll flip it back that way eventually. But Browns aren't interested in Darnold. I'd rather talk Baker back. And I think Darnold's worse than Baker. I'd rather talk Baker into Brent coming back than that. So
yeah, I think I agree. I don't know if that situation can be repaired, but it's where do you think the Watson thing goes? By the way, how do you think this is going? Because that's obviously the key question here.
The NFL is going to push for a year suspension, and then it's going to go to an arbiter. As I understand it, the arbiter. I can't say that word, Brendan. You're going to have to say it for me.
Arbitrator.
And then they're going to decide. Now, supposedly, it's supposed to be a non-league arbitrator. It's not anybody connected to the league office, which means that flip a dice on what you're going to get back as far as the return goes on that particular thing. You don't have Goodell's hammer of death. My way, my word is the way, and you will listen to nothing else. So we don't have that to go on like we've had in the past. The NFL will go for a suspension. He'll appeal it. Arbiter Arbiter. I think it's from a video game. There was a character called the Arbiter, and so that's what I'm thinking of.
StarCraft?
It might be that. I don't know. I've played so many video games. There's got to be one character somewhere named the Arbiter. But I think that.
Halo.
There we go.
Arbiter.
Halo. There we go. Arbiter. Yeah, Halo. That's what I was thinking of. God, why am I stuck on this Arbiter thing? This old head. I do think that the Arbiter, they're going to, I'm going to stop saying it. He's going to chop in half. I think he'll probably end up moving it down to either, 8 games, 10 games. It'll probably get clipped by him at that point in time. And the NFL will go, we did everything we could. We did all we could. We tried to punish him. And, it's just the CBA. Blame it on the Players Association.
Yeah. What a bullet that ended up being that we dodged. I can admit that. I wanted him too.
I did as well. Yeah. But here's the thing. I think we always preface this. You preface this, I think, as well. And this is a very important part of this process, Brendan. We don't have the investigators in the background. We don't have the background information. We can't pay a legion of guys to go do groundwork on a player to find out how much there is tangibly there. And I know there was already a lot of stuff released out, but I'm talking about getting to some of the nitty-gritty details that isn't even been posted out into the press. And if we were looking at him seriously, I said, I want him, but I would also want to be making sure my PIs and all that are going down the stretch to find out where this is going. Are there going to be the specific thing on this, Brendan? We talked about this. Is there going to be more accusers? Is this just going to keep going forever? Like with, like it will be a year from now at 192, it's like, dear God, Deshaun, how many massages do you need? So we did dodge a bullet with that one. It's a mess for Cleveland. They look awful. And dude, they look, even if we would have traded for Deshaun, neither you nor I under any God's green earth would have given that man 230 guaranteed million money dollar bills. No way. That Cleveland did that double. It's such a Cleveland type move from a historical standpoint, them doing this right now. And the guaranteed money, I mean, that thing's just going to keep, that's a big problem right now league wide because quarterbacks are going to start asking for that guaranteed money. Like, hey, I didn't ask for any massages. Why shouldn't I get exactly what he got? And they got a point, frankly. That's the problem with setting a trend, but sending a
precedent.
There we go.
Yeah. I mean, I even knowing what we know now, I still think what Cleveland did was the right thing to do. There are not that many opportunities to get a Deshaun Watson. You're the Browns. You've got this Super Bowl caliber roster, but you don't have the quarterback. This is your chance. I completely understand going for it. And even looking back at it, I would still say I think they did the right thing. But I heard a rumor that the league was going to push for a 3-year suspension, maybe even more. I don't know if they can do that, but apparently they're going for it.
This is an unprecedented point where this has not happened in recent league history of a guy that's been under this kind of microscope with the situation. So if there's a place that generates them going, and again, Brendan, if they're doing it in anticipation of knowing when it goes to the arbitrator, it will then be chopped down no matter what they initially try to do, right? It's like the opening of negotiations. You always go for the big number first because you know it's going to be pulled down. So they probably try to go to 3 knowing it's going to eventually be taken to 1, which makes sense because the NFL does want, I think, to not just by appearances, but with some actual teeth, make it look like they are truly trying to come down and met out some form of whatever kind of justice they can met out through a suspension and giving the man guaranteed money as he's being suspended.
Yeah. I remember when LeBron left Cleveland the first time, when the really bad time. I remember thinking it was so bad and it left that team so destitute that I remember kind of thinking like this is going to end with the Cavaliers moving to another city because it's just so toxic now. And I don't know if this can happen as easily in the NFL. It probably can't. Part of me kind of feels like if the Browns really did give up their whole farm for Watson and then he never plays for them and they still have to pay him, which is, I guess, possible. I almost wonder if that's going to be enough to just kill that franchise. Like it's so bad.
Well, you definitely are going to kill it at least for a good 4 to 5 years, right? Because you're talking about now every season having to operate from a cap deficiency of $40 million every year starting out before everybody else, on top of needing to go find your next quarterback, which you have no idea where you're getting that at this point. No clear path on that standpoint of things. You're right. It's going to set him back. This is going to hurt. And that's one of the things where I'm okay with Cleveland even making the trade. If they really were able to, they just look, we'll take the bullets from the PR standpoint. You can maybe get me up to there because it's Cleveland, and you're right, they're desperate. And when have they ever had a roster that is this close and this ready to really go for it? Totally valid points. You
Hmm.
lose me on the bonus money though, because he gets suspended this year. You don't have the ducats now to go get the quarterback or hold on to Baker really, or you have to hold on to Baker basically, but you don't have the ducats then to formulate much of the rest of the roster / go get that alternative quarterback on now a roster. If you're talking about a year and a half suspension, that is able to compete, that is able to, and it's not necessarily like leaned on its quarterback too, Brendan, this particular offense. It's not really a quarterback driven offense with the running backs and the two tight end sets, the way they utilize them, and just trying to sort of have everything short. So it's, that's where to me, I went, they don't, you can get me up to that point, but the guaranteed money now boxes you in on them, and you don't have any way to get yourself, you're stuck. Like you said, you're stuck for a couple of years at that point. You're
Yeah.
completely married to the guy.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why I don't understand why people freaked out when it was leaked that Wilson wanted 5 years, 250 guaranteed. Like Watson got almost that, and he hasn't played football in a year. Like I don't understand why that's a surprise.
I think I saw this with a lot of the Bronco fans showing a lot of shock in this, that when he was asking for this. I saw Seahawks fans go, yeah. I saw
Hmm.
Bronco fans going, he's what? He's going to, how much does he want? How much is he going to want? And it's like, yeah, he doesn't take discounts. And I don't know if they thought that that's what he was going to do, is like this whole Brady route where he'd come in there and take 10 million less a year, 15 million less a year, but it's going to be the opposite. And,
Yeah.
you better believe Mark Rodgers wants that exact guaranteed money deal that Watson got. For a quarterback going into his late 30s with a higher injury risk, who's got a better baseline and background than Watson, you better believe Rodgers will be asking for it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it, because they've
Yeah.
got Denver in that same hamper that Jamal Adams had us in, which is we
Kind
made
of.
all these assets, we got to pay you now.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read also that other players don't like it when players take discounts because it hurts their ability to negotiate. Like I remember reading about how other quarterbacks really did not appreciate what Brady was doing. So the other players, like I think the players unions are pushing you to do that as well.
Yeah.
If you're part of the players union, they want you to get all the money that you can as well. So I don't know why that was really particularly surprising, but yeah,
But
that kicked up some dust.
And I can get that that's going to kick up dust, but that's what makes a quarterback a leader. That's what makes
Hmm.
him a person who can see the big picture of the situation, which is that I am part of the players union, but I'm a Seattle Seahawk, or I'm a New England Patriot, or I'm a Kansas City Chief in the case of Mahomes, who also took a discount in his last contract, even on the 10-year, $500 million. He kept that percentage of his cap really low through those first couple of seasons and renegotiated 1 year after signing that new contract, by the way. So he's done it as well. I think that leaders lead, and you want to let all the little piss ants that are the secondary quarterbacks want to bitch and moan because they're going to have to live on 25 million instead of 35 million because they're going to blame that on you. If I'm a big dog alpha quarterback, I don't care what they got to say on that. I'm just going to go out there and win my Super Bowls and let them dry their tears on their stacks of money. Like,
Hmm.
quarterbacks have no reason to maybe the Players Association can speak up about that, but a quarterback position where backups can make $6-7 million, a good backup who doesn't do anything, like shut up, like shut up. You're
Hmm.
not taking any hits. You're out there, drinking water the whole game, listening on the headset.
Yeah. Yeah, me and some of my viewers talk about this on stream sometimes. We're talking about this upcoming QB draft class that looks super deep,
Mm,
and some future draft classes look really good as well. And basically, the point we're getting to is that there are going to be more than 32 good quarterbacks in a couple years
mm-hmm,
because there are going to be a bunch of quarterbacks coming in,
mm-hmm.
and that's going to eventually get these quarterbacks to where they can't just hold franchises hostage for all their money because the team can just go like, okay, I'll go get this guy. Like once the level of talent in the quarterback pool in the NFL goes up, that's I think what is going to make it easier to drive costs down. And I'm excited for that.
I think it's a great point. I also would say, Brendan, wouldn't you not say that? Because I agree with it, but you would also say within it that from a team standpoint, the smart team who's trying to look for those future trends and look for where the game is going, not where it is right now, would look to that and say, let's anticipate that. Let's get up ahead of that ahead of that curve and start operating within that now as we look to the next quarterback. And what I mean specifically on this, Brendan, is we bring the next guy in, we bring through the lens of finding a pro-ready guy, not a developmental guy, not a guy that can't run a pro offense, a guy with a good skill set who can carry the day as much as we need. But we're looking at this through a 4 or 5 year lens with this guy. We're not looking at it through, do we have our next guy for the next 15 years? Do we have our guy for the next decade? We stop getting out of that mentality of things and start getting around more of build the team up around that guy, because I do think these guys are going to get better. Offenses are getting more simplified, especially with these spread concepts and the bubble screens and the fly sweeps and the just throw it to a receiver in space, give him the ball and let him go work, as opposed to the traditional drop back and throw your 15-yard rope on a spot, on an out route. You need to make all those throws and the post route deep. The game is changing in that respect, and especially with the mobility element too. So would you not say that's probably a smart way too, to anticipate that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that we might be on the cusp of seeing that with Lamar. Maybe the Ravens are going to do it.
Yes.
It doesn't seem like they have any interest in linking themselves up to Lamar long term, and I don't blame them.
No. And is it any coincidence that they also happen to be one of those smarter organizations in recent history as far as how they roster build, how they draft, how they put the team together? They took Lamar in there and they changed their offense up around Lamar. They've got Mark Roman in there to run basically the Colin Kaepernick 49er offense for them there at the end there, where it's just all turning him into a running back. It worked because they're a smart organization that's constantly it's constantly thinking. To me, they're kind of a little bit more of a forward-thinking organization in that respect. And so I think very well they've been playing this thought process of should we do it? Should we do it? It wouldn't surprise me in the least if they did. If they end up moving Lamar Jackson and just saying we're going to be part of this new model. I'd like to be part of the new model. I think the quarterbacks have gotten far too expensive. Far too expensive. They do matter, but I think it's gotten beyond the pale at this point. It really has.
Real quick here, Go Hawks 2022. Thank you for the $20 super chat. Good show, guys. Waiting for 2023 draft quarterback. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in this upcoming draft for sure. By the way,
yeah, go ahead.
Did you see Archie Manning committed to Texas?
I did. How about that, Sark?
I was looking at those pictures of him and I was like, oh yeah. If the guy we get next year ends up not being the guy, and if we could time this out to where as soon as we're moving on from that guy, Archie Manning's there, it's just like, oh yes.
Do you think the Mannings would let him play in Seattle?
It depends on who owns us, I guess, right? Like at that point, we're going to have a new owner.
I mean, it does a little bit, but the worry I have is I just come back to Eli, with San Diego having drafted him and then forcing his way to New York on draft day. And I mean, now Peyton went to Indianapolis, but Indianapolis wasn't that far from where he went to college at Tennessee, basically speaking. Nor far from where he grew up, in the South. And so that would be my one wonder. But if he's there, I mean, they've got him as one of the highest rated prospects ever. And, I've heard he's got actual mobility and he seems like he can move a little bit on top of having that Manning arm and precise ball placement and all that, just throwing a good ball. So, yeah, I'm stoked with him. I'm definitely on board. Not to mention, he'll be pro ready, Brendan. That's a guy you want to talk about pro ready. He's got a lot of history to go off of there.
Maybe the most pro ready quarterback we're going to see for quite some time. Yeah, I was
going to say, I would just real quick too. There's been some interesting debates. I don't know if you've been noticing some of the scuttlebutt in this last week coming up because people are doing their evaluations on some of these rookie quarterbacks coming out, and they're looking at last year's tape, which is good to start looking at the tape. I continue to say that if you look at last year's tape, understand it's going to be worth about 15% in the evaluation process when we move through this season to next year. Next year's tape is going to be weighted way more heavily than anything that we've seen so far. But there seems to be a little bit of this, starting to pop up, this KJ Jefferson, Will Levis thing. And, I kind of want to just kind of nail down again why for me Levis is my guy, because I see, like, I was even seeing stuff like put out that like if you match up Jefferson and Levis, there's some like subtle racism thing if you're liking Levis because obviously the stats are so much better. And like, okay, really? KJ Jefferson is running a read option offense, and these offenses proliferate the college country scheme everywhere right now. All of them are running it right and left. What we just talked about is, what did I just say? I want to have a pro-ready quarterback who can walk in and handle the duties instantly. Because what this blueprint is based on getting that quarterback early and then having him be able to be successful quickly. You talked about not being a competitor maybe next year, but if we do have that team ready to go, all that much more important than that the quarterback you're bringing in is pro-ready, isn't going to take 2 years to develop and go work out his kinks and Trey Lance his way through life until he can be ready. You need him now, right? So Will Levis running the Rams offense, literally running the Seahawks offense right now at Kentucky, versus KJ Jefferson, who's running the read option, Cam Newton spread offense, one read and a throw offense. And the comparison I've been seeing put out there is the interception comparison. So Jefferson's at 4 interceptions last year, whereas Levis is at 13. And I want to ask you about this on your perspective on this. And that is, if I have a quarterback in a spread offense with a one read approach and then he's running most of the time, that's what he does on the offense, versus another quarterback under center, has to go through progression reads, has to drop back to 5-7 step drops, has to read a defense. Which of those two is probably going to throw more interceptions? Just on general nature.
Right. I think that using like stats in college football is generally just kind of a mistake. I mean, Peyton Manning's stats in college were nowhere near as good as what was the name of the Hawaii guy, Colt Brennan?
That's right.
Like, there's so much more that goes into evaluating these players.
There is.
And as for Levis, I think people need to understand that a lot of this stuff is a projection. We need to see what these guys do in their final years in college. That's going to be a massive part of determining what their value is. Levis could be a guy who slips to the 5th round. He could have a bad year. It happens. Stuff like that does happen. Totally. But from what we've seen so far, Levis seems like he's going to develop into being a quarterback that will fit this current offense very well. That's what we can say. And I like KJ Jefferson too.
I love KJ Jefferson. That's the thing, is that the funny part about this is it's become a debate of leave it. And I just go, look, there's going to be 5 first-round quarterbacks in this next draft probably. Why can't we love them all? And I think KJ Jefferson, if Seattle wants to change their scheme, if they love KJ so much and they bring him in, and you just say, F it, Waldron, we're sorry, we're doing the the Panther offense is what we're running now. Fine, go with that route if he's such a difference maker at the position to determine that you should do so. I would say I'm a little bit not totally in favor of that, because you haven't really given then Waldron's offense a true try at that point. You sort of just brought it in and sort of like speckled it across the board rather than really trying to fully paint the walls with it and see what you could do with it at that point. That's early bailing in my opinion, but KJ is going to be a phenomenal talent. I could see both of these guys easily going top 10, if not higher. So it's not to throw shade at KJ. It's as much to say, why do you like Levis so much? Is it just because, he's got the arm and he scrambles around? And no, it's also because of he's playing within his offense and playing well within it. I can watch him on play action and put the ball deep into a belly of a running back, make it disappear, pull it out in play action in a way other quarterbacks don't do and commit to in that element of things. I see him comfortable in his footwork. His mechanics are clean. KJ's Cam mechanics are all over the place. The relation to Cam is not just a relation to Cam because he wears the number 1 jersey and he's got the towel and he looks like Cam. It's also because he doesn't know how to use his lower half. He's all upper body right now. And again, sensational talent, but he's going to have to clean those things up mechanically by the time he gets to the NFL level. He can get by with it at college. He's not going to be able to get by with it at the NFL level. And I don't have those same kind of mechanical flaw worries that I see in Levis necessarily.
Yeah. Like we did that video a few weeks ago talking about these college quarterbacks. There were like 17 guys that I think are worth watching this year.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are going to slip away, but we can afford to be picky here. We can afford to point out the flaws in everybody.
Yeah.
You don't have to just take the first guy who throws a nice 50-yard touchdown pass.
And we want to make sure that we're operating within the team has created this blueprint. Neither Brendan and I didn't say this is how we want to go and this is our route and this is what we're choosing. What we do is our job here is to take a read of the lay of the land and say this is what we're seeing is going on. The team is showing you every indication that their intent going forward is to stick back to the 2012 blueprint model, as if to say, damn, we've been paying quarterback through all these years. This hasn't really worked as well. We had our greatest success when we had a rookie quarterback and built the team. We're going back to that. So if that's the case, we got to look at it through that lens, and getting a quarterback that is even though he might be hyper talented, if he's going to take a couple years to develop, you're not operating within the blueprint then. You're operating with something that's outside of that, which they've not given us any indications that that's what they're trying to do.
Right. Real quick here, Nolan R. Vance, thank you for the $20. Brendan, glad you are feeling better. Brandon caught your replay last night. Appreciate both of you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Nolan.
Thank you, Nolan. Appreciate it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Very kind of you.
Mm-hmm. All right. One last thing I want to go over here. I think we've done a pretty good job covering the more interesting Seahawks topics right now. Again, there's just not a whole lot to go on here. So if I have my timeline correct, we are a couple of days away from what Carroll referred to as an important date in Chris Carson's rehab. About, I think, 12, maybe 13 days ago, Carroll said that Carson has an important date in 2 weeks to see where he's at. And a decent number of people think that if he does not get good news at this important date, whenever it may be, he will retire. So we are quite possibly, and we probably should be, on the verge of getting some resolution here with Carson. So what's your read on this situation based off what we know? I'm sure you've seen the picture of the thing in his neck right now.
The picture in his neck thing caused my brother to call me, actually. And
Oh, really?
my brother works for a company, Roar Spine, that is a company that does exactly these type of fusion surgery type deals with the little deal in the neck deal. So he deals in this daily. This is his life. And he called me up. He says, you can have me on the show. I'll test to this. He says his career is done. He says if he takes one hit, he could be paralyzed legitimately with that hardware in his neck. Again, this is from a brother who deals with these spinal doctors all the time and talking to him and understands this product backwards and forwards. It was the first thing when I know that picture you're talking about, you saw off Twitter. And when he saw it, he said, that's our stuff. That's exactly what we do. Like you can't play football after you do that. Like it's no, there's no chance. And he didn't say, well, there's like it's like a 1%. He said, no, not happening. So I'm going to lean back on that. If we read the tea leaves on this, Brendan, by how Carroll's in his general mannerisms has talked about the situation, or Rashad Penny when he was asked about it a couple weeks ago at the OTAs, nobody has been like, he's going to be back. If I know one thing about Chris, he's going to be back on that football field. It's been like, well, we'll see how it goes. We're hopeful. And that's, to me, parsing them is okay. It's most likely than not that this is it. They're trying to give him as long as they could. There's nothing to be lost by giving him as long as they could, right? They didn't have that money necessarily earmarked for anything else.
Right.
But they're going to give them as long as they can. And then they're going to say, okay, we tried, man, but we can't. And again, it makes sense. If you got hardware in your neck, man, that stuff already in there, and you slam hardware in there and you start banging it around high violent collisions and just that it doesn't take kind of a spinal surgeon to go, boy, that seems like that might cause some real, like, what if it just got destroyed and got crumpled in the neck? What would happen then? Like, which is easily could happen on a football field. There's no protection back there unless he's going with that neck roll, that old school.
The Bo Jackson?
The old school neck roll. Remember that?
Yeah. Bo Jackson. Yeah. That was the guy who I remember with the neck roll.
Somebody's got to bring the neck roll back, dude. Somebody's got to bring the neck roll back. It's time for a good, strong neck. The Van Der Esch tried a couple years ago, but he wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Had that one good year. Yeah. So I don't even think this is a financial thing at this point. I think Carson actually gets paid in full if he has to retire because of an injury like Cam did. So this isn't even really about money. This is just about, this is going to end badly, like him getting carted off the field. And it's not like we need the extra, what would it be, $3.5 million hypothetically? It's not like we need it. Right. There's nothing to spend money on right now for this year or really next year if you're talking about rollover, I don't think. So it's not even about that. It's just how stupid would you feel if he goes out there week one, touches the ball 3 times, and then he's getting carted off and it's over? Like, how obvious does it need to be that this needs to be the end?
This would be a gross look. Carroll's a guy that has once shut down a player for having a heart condition. I know that there was word that they passed on Montez Sweat because of a heart condition. This is entirely more risky than that with those players in the passing you made. So if your baseline is that you care about a player's health and safety to that point where you'll save them from themselves, this needs to be a place where you're saving him from themselves. No other team's going to clear him in the league. You love the guy. You have admiration for the guy being Carroll. I get it. But at the end of the day, you got to also do right by him here, which is that this is not a risk you can take on the football field. And there's a very good chance that this could happen. Being, again, he's at one of the most violent positions on the field. He's at one of the positions you take the most pounding and punishment at. There is nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. You're going to get beat up. And so my tendency is to believe, Brendan, they knew about this neck thing. They knew the neck thing was going to maybe continually get worse and worse. They wanted to give him some financial reward for being the soldier he had been prior. And they'd already kind of made their, to your point on this, made their financial bed with the situation. But I think that they're also understanding that Carroll's baseline on this has been pretty conservative with players and protecting them. I think he will maintain that here.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get the final word on it in the next handful of days. So hopefully this is going to be coming to a close quickly. I think that Carroll has a particular love for Carson as well. I think he's one of his favorite players. So this is hard for him, but I think it's very clear it needs to be done.
I think we can both say we've learned at this point, Carroll's favorite position probably on the football field is running back, and not just any kind of running back, but the Marshawn Lynch, Chris Carson type running back. Probably you can make an argument is his favorite position on the football field. And he just has, A gap, baby, A gap all day. And that he just loves those guys. And they're pure football players. They're old school football players. They hammer it every time. They punish. It just appeals to him. Which, look, I like it too. I like hammering running backs. So they're great. I get it with him. I understand the fondness there, but you just can't risk it with this guy. Protect the kid. He's already had the hell beat out of him in his short football life. Like he's had probably a career worth of punishment in his short 4 seasons.
Well, I think that's really all we can sink our teeth into right now. I'm not interested in going into the Noah Fant had the most spectacular camp of anybody, like that means anything.
Right.
Not really interested in talking about the Geno versus Drew battle. That much more than we already have anyway. I think we've done a pretty good job covering things.
Yeah, I think we need more tangible. Let's get to training camp. Let's get to preseason games. Let's have something that we're watching with these guys between them and their competition before we make any determinations. Even Geno being up ahead of Drew, I don't take much away from, because Geno's been here for a couple of years. He's got the familiarity, so I would expect Drew to be a little bit behind him and getting up to speed with the guys.
Yeah. We're not that far away from the preseason, actually. It doesn't feel right how close we are to it.
I know. It's going to go fast, especially once you hit July, because it is in the Pacific Northwest with summers. We blink and our summers are gone. So, it's going to be like, July 23rd, training camp going. And we're like, dang, we're 5 weeks out from opening day, or Jesus.
Yeah. Only 3 preseason games this year, though. So that's been pushed back a little bit, but nothing wrong with that. That's certainly a positive thing. So, Brandon, I'm going to thank you for coming out this week. It's good to be doing this again.
I think back up on your feet.
I think we'll be proceeding forward with a once a week schedule from here on out.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out, and to all of you in the chat. If you are not yet subscribed to the Hawk's Nest, head on over. Just search the Hawk's Nest on YouTube. Give them a sub, and we're going to keep on doing this. We still got stuff to talk about. We still got interesting stuff happening. Any day now, you might get a word about this player getting extended or that player getting extended. So there's still stuff happening. It's just this is the slow time of the year. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. And before we leave, we got to do it. We got to say, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.